Hello and welcome to the history of the Metacrisis. Today I have a great pleasure of hosting a very interesting young lady, Anastasia Kalinina. Anastasia is the co-founder and CEO of reState Foundation, who has a Swiss-based, reState is a Swiss-based foundation that has the provocative aim of reimagining the future of governance and global collaboration. Anastasia has served in the past as a senior advisor on partnerships at the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, and for 8 years she also served at the World Economic Forum. She was the head of Eurasia for quite 5 years. She holds 3 different degrees. Her master's degree is from the London School of Economics and Political Science on human rights, while her initial degrees was from the University of Northern Iowa, and Masters on Communication Studies and Public Relations. She has lived in several countries all around the world, and she has a really global perspective. So let's discuss with her about the future of governance and of our societies, actually. Without further ado, let me introduce to you, and please welcome with me, Anastasia Kalinina. Anastasia, welcome to the history of the Metacrisis.
Thank you, Alexandros. Thank you for having me.
Where are you? Where are you right now? And how is the weather? Our connection is not so good. I don't know if it is my connection because it's pretty rainy today in Greece, or if it is because of your connection. I don't know what is the problem with our connection today.
Not sure, Alexandros. It's nice and sunny here in Geneva, where I currently am, and I'm just looking at the little garden outside, which is full of sunlight and new flowers of the spring. So it's pretty glorious right now in terms of the weather. Very good. That's my favorite.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself, about your life experiences and your trajectory? How did you come to start reimagining the future of the governance and of the world?
How much time do you have, Alexandros?
Well, we have time. Don't worry about time.
Yes, sure. So my story is, I guess, a little unconventional because from the early childhood, I felt a little weird in my own skin because I always perceived myself as somebody on a little mission in life. And that mission was and still is to connect people around the idea of our shared humanity. Because I have lived in so many countries and cultures in the world, I was able to take a little bit in from every culture that I was part of, and that was part of me. And I believe, especially in the realms of the current meta crisis that you are exploring with your guests, it is of the utmost importance that we remember our shared humanity and our ultimate oneness through various exercises that we could engage in, including, cooperation, cross-country collaboration, cross-community collaboration, understanding what unites us all. And so these sentiments have brought me to the field. Initially, I was doing social projects for women and families in difficult life situations. Then I was for a pretty long time in the field of human rights. So worked for Amnesty International, International Service for Human Rights, exploring what are the inalienable rights of us as individuals, as people on this planet that are, same in Greece or Japan or Iran or Ukraine or the United States or China. And then I also discovered through these initiatives the powers of communities. And so a lot of work that I've done was around community building. That has brought me to the United Nations and the World Economic Forum. At the World Economic Forum, I have initiated a youth community for people under 30 called the Global Shapers Community. And then I moved on to work with the adults of the world, the prime ministers, presidents, CEOs, deans of the universities, civil society leaders. And I also got to explore how governance works on the top level, right? How countries function and operate, how international relations function, right? How the deals are done, how people negotiate, how people push their agendas and pull away their agendas. I explored all of that. And there, Alexandros, there I discovered the initial flaws, I think the fundamental flaws in our systems, and that is a huge division, the narrative of us versus them, inconsistency in being one humanity that is leading right now to very drastic, exacerbating by minute kind of challenges that we're facing. So if you ask me, I think this is the core of our Metacrisis, our huge disconnect from each other, huge polarization that is currently happening in the world, and our inability to find peace with who we are and how diverse we are, yet we're also very similar. So that work has led me to founding my own organization called reState Foundation, with a few co-founders. We're looking into bringing back the oneness. And, we decided to take an unconventional route to it. We want to do it through governance practices, self-organization, and alternatives to current systems that are more collaborative. I can unpack this further, but let me just stop here. And like personally, I'm a fan of different cultures. I have friends and events and opportunities from all over the world. So, the world is my home. And when I want to go to a new room in my house, I travel to Tokyo, or I travel to Tegucigalpa, or I travel to Lima, or I travel to Detroit. It's just, these are all rooms in our big house. So depending on the mood, we make our pick.
Well, you have a whole global perspective, calling your home the planet. But I'm not so sure that right now that politics is so much polarized all around the globe. We see wars marching. We see a lot of conflicts, a lot of disputes. And while you mentioned international relations, that was the field that I was working for quite 20 years, for the European institutions, for United Nations, for different organizations, the Council of Europe. Well, you actually, with your reState Foundation, are opposing the status quo, the very states of the world. So you have big adversaries. You have all the states of the world are your opponents. How do you feel about that?
It's great that I do not see it this way. Otherwise, it would be quite frustrating to be the enemy of the status quo. And the reason why I'm not feeling this way is because I think people just forgot who they are. And I think, we're having fun playing this game of separation. I mean, fun is quite contestable, but, there's some fun to be had when you don't know any better. So I believe that innately and deep down, we know what this is all about. But somehow the arrangements that we've created in the past do not allow for this to fully manifest. So I believe it's a matter of time, probably a very long time, Alexandros. Maybe our great children would witness some of it if we do not burn the planet before. Yet the direction is there. So if one believes that it's just a matter of helping people remember certain things and bring it back to how it probably should be and has been a very long time ago, then it makes for a different kind of case that I'm trying to make. We're not fighting the status quo. We're just supporting what is not currently working by looking at some potential alternatives together, not alienating anybody, right? There's no person that I would never talk to. I would talk to anybody if there is an opportunity to shape a shared discourse as a result of it. So quite the opposite. I think everybody's a friend deep down. They might not fully recognize it, but yes, this is that. Having said that, I don't want to be naive or disillusioned. It's a mad world that we're living in, and the level of separation and division is higher than ever. So we need to deal with reality of that. People are not there, not even close. Yet, slowly but surely, I'm on a great exploration journey right now in my life. Go around the world, recognizing people who resonate and who feel the same. And there are many, many of us.
You have told me Ukrainian blood in your veins, Russian blood, Greek blood. You are a citizen of the world. Right now, we see, especially in Eastern Europe, tensions and wars. How does that make you feel personally? And what is the impact on your work, on your daily work, this war in Ukraine?
This is terrible, Alexandros. This is a sign of just how lost everyone is and how our global policies do not form an opportunity for peaceful resolutions of these matters. And this war is another reflection of what is wrong with the world. And so is the other currently standing war in Israel. These are the signs of how broken the current systems are. And because I know both worlds, I know Eurasia, I have worked with the region for a very long time. I have worked with Ukraine and Russia. I have worked with, the US and Europe and the East. Like, I have worked with different worlds. It's very difficult because I understand the mentality of both sides. It's almost like you understand that these are absolutely parallel narratives that will never cross. The collective West would never understand what's going on in Eurasia, and Eurasia is not able to communicate properly. So it's almost a lost communication game. They could never, or at least not anytime soon, come to any sort of common ground. That's what I'm seeing. It's difficult to work under such conditions because there are things right now that we can not do with certain countries, and it's frustrating. And especially it's frustrating because lives are spared on narratives and discourses. Life are spared because of the illusions, because of trying to make a statement, and that happens on all sides. And people do not see just like how far they are from understanding the other sides. That's what I'm seeing.
And why we have the whole infrastructure, the whole institutional framework right there to resolve this kind of matters. And for quite some time, for almost 80 years, we have managed to escape escalation, at least big wars. We have had proxy wars, we have had tensions, but we have managed to avoid escalations to the point of no return. While right now it seems that the institutional framework fails to provide with the right solutions, with concrete understanding, we cannot even discuss even certain subjects within the UN Security Council, within the top levels of the European Union, within the top diplomatic forums. What is wrong with the state of the world today?
Mm-hmm. You see, Alexandros, I see it as death by many cuts, right? So it's really, there wasn't a single move on anybody's part well, I guess you could argue waging a war is that, but I think it started much earlier. These are the series, at least I see it that way, of wrong moves. One wrong move after another wrong move after another wrong move, then another impulse, another impulsive emotional behavior, another piece of emotional behavior. And then, before we know it, there are troops in the country to wage into the war. So I think the absence of mechanisms to deal with this acceleration of mistakes is the core of the problem. And of course, when you have weapons, when you have bad stuff, there is no way that it would not be used. And this is why I'm quite concerned about this existence of nuclear in the world. When something exists, it's almost asking to be used. And so this is a huge concern of mine that, again, a series of wrong emotional moves would lead to a disaster. What is wrong with all of this is a deep question, Alexandros. I don't think I fully understand the answer, but in a way, it's our inability to admit that things are just so wrong that we need to reconsider everything. And people do not like to change. People do not like to change on the individual level. Families do not like to change. Communities do not like to change. What can we say about the whole world? It will be a very disturbing experience if we just say, listen, nothing is working, can we just rearrange it? It's the process that we're not ready for, even though I believe only that process would actually help solve it somehow. So in the absence of any ability or willingness to reconsider everything, unfortunately, what will have to occur is a series of disasters that will push us to doing that. It will not be a result of any rational discourse, the way we change things. Unfortunately, my hunch is that it will happen through rather unfortunate events that will leave us in the condition where it's simply just not possible to continue.
I agree with you, and especially when you mentioned the nuclear parameter. For me, I believe that we seem to forget over time. Whenever you have a big war, the next generation, the generation coming after the war, because they have felt the consequences, they used to remember. But right now we are 2 or 3 generations away of the previous big war. And we don't seem to learn from past mistakes as a species. It takes us an enormous amount of time to internalize previous disasters and to create a common narrative. We only create common narratives for things, for histories having happened long ago, long ago. A century is not that far away, or 80 years. So each side of the previous conflicts has his own or her own narrative. So we live in conflicting narratives. Conflicting narratives merge with conflicting interests, and they create havoc.
Yes.
Well, the question is, what are we going to do about it? And what are your proposals, your solutions with the reState Foundation and with your ordinary work? What are you doing every day to address these issues? Because these are the very issues of governance, of international politics that you are dealing with.
Yes, absolutely. So on the organizational level, we are engaged in considering alternatives to how things are done right now. There is a project that we are getting started, and that is called the New Realities Design Lab, where we will be bringing together people who have already coined alternative solutions to how things are done. And I'm sure with the nature of your work, many of these people are known to you. So they have created, the likes of donut economics, cradle-to-cradle economies, cooperative as a corporate structure. So many alternative solutions that are in existence already. They have been tested in some spaces, but not enough spaces. We want to bring all of this knowledge together to create frameworks for alternative governance ideas and at least catalog them, at least have them at people's disposal and, show them to the world that, just have a look what else is available. And these are driven by different mentalities, right, to what we currently see. And then that would already be a crucial part. And partially we have done this already. We have designed, for example, the Future of Governance Toolkit, which is a collection of participatory governance tools that people could use around the world. So even if we stop at that level, bringing the theoretical knowledge is already, an important step. And of course, no single organization or individual could do it all. But of course, we don't want to stop just there. And we would like to bring these solutions to life with communities and countries who are willing to try things out. Right, so it doesn't have to happen in the full entirety of the toolkit, but if you're Greece, for example, and you want to experiment a little bit with how elections are done, in a very transparent way, we can provide solutions for that, and we can recommend the steps to be taken. Or, for example, you're the state of Colorado in the US, and you've been experimenting with quadratic voting, which is another way of doing the voting. We can also help see how we can expand this, how we can turn it into a practice that you regularly have in your state. So we want to assist in bringing this to the world. So building the theory part and seeing if anybody wants to do the practice part is our theory of change.
Mm-hmm. What happened? Okay, I kind of lost you. Okay, now I see you back. What is the feedback that you are getting from governments, from international institutions, from NGOs that you are working with, from cooperatives? What is the acceptance of your message and of your practices and of your ideas?
It's kind of hard to argue with the necessity of this. So I think, the point we're making is not something that
quite straightforward.
Yeah. And plus, we don't have any hidden agendas. Like, we don't want to kind of pitch countries or communities against each other, because our agenda is very clear. Let's see what is available. Let's see if, even if you're like China or, Iran, well, probably it's not likely that we will work with this country soon, or they will not work with us. But if you're any country in the world, at least see what solutions could make sense to you, because the world is still moving to more participatory spaces. It's a long journey, and it probably doesn't even make sense what I'm saying. But I think ultimately we will come to more participation, even though right now you may have seen the latest release of the democracy index. Now 70% of the world lives under systems that are not democratic. Yet there's a very long-term movement into more of the participatory practices. So our case for the governments is that this will inevitably happen. You can at least now see how you want this to happen and through what means, before it just takes you by the storm. So most of the feedback we're getting is rather positive. Plus, because our agenda is so global, it's just helping the world figure itself out, right? What are the economic systems that make sense for people who are unbanked, which is, a lot of people on the African continent. And, it's just helping solve current problems while always looking out for what the future may hold. So I think that the thesis is quite unbreakable. Of course, there are critics to everything, but so far we're just in a bubble where most people would be pleased with what we're doing and would be curious about it.
Well, you mentioned democracy. Democracy, I believe, is a big part of your work. But right now, democracy is losing grounds, not only in terms of how many countries are under the democratic banner, but also internally. The countries that claim that have democratic constitutions and institutions, they lose their institution lose representability. People do not participate. There is a lot of polarization within societies among different groups. People today seems to be divided more and more in echo chambers. I don't know if information society has managed to unite us. It created an overall a global noosphere, but I'm not so sure that within countries we have a common ground anymore.
Mhm. Yeah.
How do you assess this kind of discussion, these problems, and what are your solutions? How do we untrap ourselves? Because we seem to be in a trap.
Yes. Yes, Alexandros, very, very spot on. You just stated the problem like it is. Well, I think that part of the problem with current democracies is that, unlike autocratic governments, democracies have not fully leveraged the potential of technology just yet. Right? I think autocracies are way better in leveraging technology, arguably because maybe they don't care so much about the ethics of it. Secondly, they're not asking people that much about what people feel about it, and so they just deploy solutions. And in a way, like for the sheer innovation of that, maybe it's the way to go. I'm going to say something very provocative, but they do it the way they can, and it's somewhat effective. I hate to admit it, but it's true. While democracies are not fully leveraging their capabilities for new ways of voting, new ways of relating, new ways of taking accountability with this. I would like to give feedback live to everything that is happening in the political realm of my country. Well, luckily I'm in Switzerland. I have a direct say in many of the matters of public concern. But Switzerland's 5 million people. Most of the people do not have this luxury. So my answer to this is that we need to equip democracies with mindsets and tools to leverage the technological possibilities. Now that AI could be of help, we need to understand how to interact with the public opinion so that people understand what is good about it, not just what could go wrong and what is threatening, and really deploy interesting new solutions that are technology-based. Because right now, autocracies are outcompeting democracies by far when it comes to deploying technologies. So that is one. And then you asked what could be done about it. Well, I guess, that helping democracies leverage technology better. And also, it has to do with fixing trust. Right now, there's no trust. And again, Edelman Barometer is like an annual publication where they assess public trust, which has been going down in the last years, both in terms of the trust to governments and also corporations. So we need to somehow find ways to make technology also trustless. So you do not have to trust individuals or your government even, but to trust the algorithms and the processes that people have agreed on that are being deployed through public control or public accountability, I would say, over these technologies.
I would buy the argument, but let me push back a little bit. Let
Please,
me play the devil's advocate here.
Mm-hmm.
I would buy the whole argument if the algorithms were under democratic control. But
Mm-hmm.
as long as they belong to specific individuals that have big interests and they have demonstrated an action in the past that is vulture-like, they act like predators upon societies. We have seen people having little children having committed suicide due to the influence of social media.
Yeah.
Nobody was held accountable, and they keep making profits out of the algorithms. So why should people trust new technologies?
Yeah, very good question. But I think you also answered it yourself. Your question contained the answer, which makes my job easier. You rightfully mentioned that it has to be under public scrutiny. It has to be under public control. And to me, this is almost a way to reinvigorate democracy. Well, people grew so apathetic about civil matters that they don't even want to waste their time on it, because they don't think that they have any say and like anything could really shift by them participating in it. But if we manage to bring back the understanding of that, you really can participate in the technology oversight. And there's like AI deliberation committees, people have full understanding of what's going on, then I think it could A, reinvigorate democracy, B, hold actors accountable, and C, just create for a different world where people understand what's going on and can somewhat control it. Because right now, neither of the three is happening. None of the three is happening, and people are frustrated and lost to the point where they don't even want to engage, understandably so. That's one. And secondly, we might potentially need to come up with like new, I call them governance primitives. So we need to understand what other mechanisms there could be. Should we reinvigorate the citizen assemblies, the citizen lotteries? Should we bring people in committees, on the local and municipal level? And like, what kind of trade-offs as we design these governance primitives? What kind of trade-offs, and like, where do we strike balance between, I don't know, autonomy or interconnectedness, efficiency or interrelating? Yeah, that these dichotomies, adaptability or something being fixed. Like, we need to reconsider the whole set of our governance solutions and see where we strike the balance, and could it shrink and expand according to the current needs. It's a whole big exercise that we need to undergo as democracies, which unfortunately is not happening. I don't know, Alexandros, how can we make it happen? What is your experience? What is your answer?
This is the question. Yes, motivating the people, understanding the people, and making them participate more presupposes, in my point of view, that the terminology that we are using is accurate. When we speak about democracy, we should speak about the majority of people. While what we see during the last, I would say after the fall of the Cold War, we see a surge in social and economic divides. The rich are becoming richer. The middle class is falling all around the globe.
Yeah.
So you have bigger divides, and democracy has lost its meaning. We should actually talk about oligarchies dealing with our societies, while the people are getting further and further away from directing their own institutions. And this is the very troubling state that the world has come up after 40 years of neoliberal marching. And the question is how we could go over it, because you need a lot of new legal provisions and a lot of goodwill and trust, while right now we see more and more tensions. And that is the very essence of the Metacrisis. We know what we should do, but how to do it, there are no answers. As also with the climate questions, we know what needs to be done. But how can you convince people not to move, I don't know, to go for vacations 3 times per year? Not to burn fossil fuels, and to go for green technologies that are cost efficient and environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
These are big questions. We know what needs to be done, but how to do it, I have no answers.
Can I propose a lens? Yeah. Like I think, and that's the essence of the the big game that we're playing. when I say game, I don't mean it on any superficial level. It's a game of life, right? It's the game solved in itself. I can suggest a couple of provocations here. One being that it's part of my personal theory of change. Of course, it's not something that's a small group of people could do, but at least one group of people could spark another group of people, could initiate another group of people. I think what we really are in the middle of is the crisis of perception, right? I've started with this as we open this discussion. It's people not understanding what it means to be a human being on this planet at this time and what the task at hand really is. People are taking things too literally, right? You're this meat suit going about your life in constant cooperation with everyone else. It's a zero-sum game. When you lose, I win. When I win, you lose. It's like people just do not understand what this is all about. And what this is all about, I would argue, is connecting with your immediate kinship. Well, first connecting with yourself, understanding self, understanding who you are, understanding how you work, because this is closest to what you can really comprehend. And then starting forming circles of kinship, looking at somebody's eyes and recognizing them for who they are and recognizing us. And then do it on the community level. Right now, I guess I'm on that stage where, I see community members. I'm like, I see you. I know that I don't have to explain anything to you. We speak the same language. We get it. Now we're many and we're growing. And then eventually we see ourselves in every human being. And then we understand that the purpose of it all is just to recognize it and imagine the power that will be released in everybody recognizing that. Is this achievable, attainable? Not in this generation, not in this lifetime, unfortunately. Is this attainable in principle? Hell yes.
In principle, yes, I believe also that it is attainable, and this is something worth fighting for. What I'm not so sure right now is that we are going to have the chance, because the window of opportunity to create this kind of solutions and understanding is closing, and it is closing fast.
Yeah.
Totally. The ecosystem is not going to wait for us to understand.
No, but the thing that's a very good point. And I think in a sense, why this has accelerated, to this kind of unbearable level, maybe it's just pushing us to go through the process faster or bust, right? It's really, we either do it very fast, and maybe you notice it too. I notice so many people sort of do you feel it too? Do you recognize, are you in it? And yes are the answers. Now, can we do it even faster? Probably. And so we must, because otherwise I think it's really, like you say, it's not looking very promising. And, if we take things like Kardashev scale and all of that, we're here to also unlock energy in a completely different way. Right now, we could not even store energy in a way that will make us, competitive on the cosmic level, right? I don't like the word competitive, but you see what I'm talking about. I think we cannot unlock, fusion power because we have not unlocked ourselves. I think there's also, these things are interrelated. When we do not understand ourselves, this level is closed for us. We could not unlock new energy. We could not unlock space travel. We could not unlock next levels of the game because we're stuck with our own selves. But we're sort of getting out. I'm not sure it will be possible, but if any time, this should happen right now in the next decade or two, because otherwise there will be nobody to unlock. No people to make it happen, or very few, because another scenario that people are contemplating, and maybe we have just a few hundred people left on this planet as a result of all of this, and then they will have to build a new life. I mean, this is rather dystopian to me, and imagine the trauma of being those people. I'd rather we just get our act together and act within the realms of the next couple of decades. Whether it's possible, we need to see.
Agree. And this is why actually I started this podcast, because we need to come up with solutions. And for me, it is a little bit disappointing because it seems to me that we're trying to find solutions with old mind thinking.
Yeah.
It is the first time in history that we have 8 billion people on the planet. But instead of trying to leverage this potential, because this is a huge potential, 8 billion different brains.
Yes.
But
And
we
hearts.
cannot manage to put them in sync. While we put in sync a lot of computers in parallel or ecologically, holistically, we cannot put in sync our own human brains. And for me, this is a waste of capital, a waste of resources. You cannot behave as a species in the same way as you behave when you have 2 billion people. Right now, we're 8 billion people. Okay, let's try to leverage this capital, but we don't do it. And for me, it's pretty disappointing.
It is. But, I don't know how you think about these matters. You also asked me, what I do on the daily. I think it's good to take sort of like personal responsibility, also understanding that you're just like one unit of this consciousness, right? You're one unit of this 8 billion brains mechanism, right? Or body, or yet you are, the center of your own universe. And by being that, are you not responsible for what this universe is like? Because it all is, it's a fractal similarity, as within, so without, right? So what changes do I need to make in myself and the way I perceive the world? And when I say to myself, okay, now I'm on the track of finding others, and I will meet them every single day of my life. And effectively, this is happening. How we connected, how you connected with other guests on your show, how I connected with other people in my life. It's just like, I guess we just set the intentions. We deliberately want to find those who are like us and like start, operating together. I guess that's another way of getting this done. And then this community expands and expands and expands, and you keep desiring for its expansion, and you keep believing that, we will make it in this next couple of decades. And maybe by thinking about it this way, you're also, introducing some changes into your immediate environment, which are, a potential of enacting this change globally. Maybe it's just like one little human being trying to do more than she could. But I think if all of us or many of us did it, then we have a chance.
Yes, I agree with you. Do you work with other kind of organizations that are particularly active right now on the whole discussion of ecology, of different forms of energy, of different ways of organizing people? Because here in my podcast, for instance, I've been speaking a month ago with these guys, Joe Redstone and Laurent Descuditi, who have introduced the Metacrisis diplomats. Another discussion that I have had is, we haven't published it yet, but is an initiative called the Global Village. They are creating communities of 5,000 people that are self-sustained, zero emissions. There are a lot of different initiatives that are moving to the same direction. Are you trying to connect with them? And because I'm actually trying to do that through the podcast.
Yes.
Creating this network of it, because there are a lot of people that have understood the problem, grasped the problem, and trying with their own little solution. Let's try to bring these solutions together.
Yes. That's precisely what we do. And I do it every single day of my life, connecting with those others. And, once you decide to do it, somehow you start seeing them and then they start seeing you. So yes, the answer is absolutely yes. Every single day I'm connecting with somebody in this field and somebody who does similar things, from the likes of, the Civilizational Institute with Daniel Schmarzenberger, and that's a company of people, to Dark Matter Labs and Indy Johar, and those folks trying to also reimagine systems, to many different institutions working with foresight, working with community building. There are also communities of individual members who do that, who work around governance things. So yes.
Is it only in the West, the people that you are working with, or have you found people also in the East, in India or in China or in Japan?
Mm-hmm. Actually, yes. Japan and India from your list are, communities and countries where we also found counterparts. Also in Africa, there are a few emerging movements. For example, there is this interesting event called Transformational Impact Summit happening in Zanzibar. In Zanzibar, there is an interesting community. It's a governance-free zone, actually. So a space in Tanzania that is rented out from the government to run little governance experiments. Nothing too extreme, but just rearranging and owning by the people who reside there of their own governance mechanisms, right? And it still brings together a lot of people from the West, yet there are a few African community members who actively participate. So even though, yes, most of them are still in the West, we're trying to make it diverse and open it up. Also, indigenous communities of elders, Latin America is great for that. And so we are connected there. And, this is, I sort of proclaim that I believe in oneness and like there should be any countries or borders, but I do like the cultures. I think cultures are somewhat shaping us, and they're bringing this beauty into like weaving this, because I believe in plurality. Like we should not be all similar, with like square minds, operating in the same way. Our differences is what makes the experience richer. So yeah, I believe in cultures, and the way they do it in Africa, or the way they do it in Latin America, or the way they do it in the East, completely different ways. Yet everybody brings their piece of the puzzle to the table. So yeah, we try to explore beyond just the West.
We live in an era that we have the most information in our history, easy to reach and cheap to reach the information, but our sense making is falling behind. Do you work with educational institutions, with schools and universities and NGOs dealing with education? Because I believe that education is the answer. We need more investment on the human capital. While right now we see huge amounts going to artificial intelligence, while we don't tackle the question of the human intelligence, which is falling behind.
Yeah. Very good question. Yeah, organic intelligence is somewhat lagging behind. Yes, we do. And in fact, we ourselves want to release at some point, we're right now preparing for this, some sort of educational materials and videos. We're now looking for the best way, because we've been accumulating this knowledge. So we want to share it, but we want to share it in a way that is accessible to many. Because the problem is, you asked me if I work with different schools. I'm currently taking 4 different courses in systems change and system redesign and like regeneration, just, for my own understanding, and to also, track the people and understand who the people are. But what's unfortunate about all of this, it's almost like the same people from course to course, at least on the level of who is tutoring, and also very specific people who are taking the course, right, with already existing interest in these matters. My question is now, how do we open it up in a way that makes this kind of knowledge accessible on the larger spectrum? For example, I think one way of introducing this would be, of course, like preschool and high school and all that, but also business schools. Right now, business schools teach business practices that are completely and sheerly like not taken into account civilizational aspects and regenerative aspects of how we live our lives. So they are producing business people who do not get it, who do not take into considerations the externalities that business are producing, and they still work for like shareholder interests and shareholder interests alone. So if we could tackle that, for example, I think it would be a different world already. If we could only introduce this kind of curricula into business schools, if I could clone myself, like another Anastasia would be working on that. Just introducing a new curricula to business schools. That's it. So somebody must start doing it. But on the level of just general education, absolutely. We need to see how this kind of narrative could make it into a mainstream. And we need to make it fast.
Have you tried reaching to ministries of education of different countries? Have you tried to create, I don't know, a pilot project with, because I believe that in order to reach the university, you need to pass from elementary school, even from kindergarten. And we need to start from the kindergarten. Because actually I've been working on a project for quite, 6-7 years of my life called the Human Connectome Project. We connected 100 billion neurons of the human brain. And we understood then that we are doing one very specific thing wrong throughout our history. We start education, formal education at 6 years old, while the human brain is exponentially growing from 3 to 6 years old. So we should actually scale down the age that we start to educate our children, because then we are creating neurons and synapses. The ideas are forming in our brain. They are becoming hardwired through a process called myelination. So we tend to believe whatever we learn at 3, 4, 5 years old. And we believe it throughout our lifetime. And everything that we learn afterwards comes and builds upon the very neurons that we created when we were 3 and 4. So the basic network is there. But we need to start earlier.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Alexandros, please keep doing that. And kudos. I mean, I just wish there would be like more people like yourself who really want to like dig deep and start earlier. But again, how difficult that is, like convincing people that this must be done. Like the status quo does not want it. It's lazy to do it. And also, do people really want educated people with critical mindsets who will just, throw away everything upon discovery of how bad that everything is, right? So it's a big question. Like you're going against the flow big time while doing it.
Yes, but this is actually worth the effort. This is actually the point. Yes, we should go against the mainstream. We should go against the flow. The flow is what brought us to the point of extinction right now. So their track record is not so good.
No. I mean, arguably, it's the best time to be alive. The violence is arguably at its lowest. I mean, there are like, whole books are written about that. This is actually, on many indicators, this is the best time to be alive. Yet, what has brought us here will not bring us to the next level, right? So, I mean, we have to give some credit to the status quo, which I also keep forgetting about. So some of the things have actually worked, and that's great, and that's celebrated. But we should also not shy away from acknowledging what doesn't or didn't work. Or, sometimes I just look at some of the current practices and I'm like, seriously, guys and girls, like seriously? Like even if you were an alien who would just like come and witness that, would you not be shocked or like appalled by the sheer stupidity or lack of common sense? We need to be able to say, we screwed up completely. Yes, we did. Yes, this is not working. Yes, I was behind this illegal arrangement, made a mistake. We all made a mistake. Let's just move on. Somehow this inability to admit that, we screwed up, prevents us from completely rearranging, just like turning things around But on your question about working with educational institutions and ministries, that has to be done. reState Foundation, we're still a relatively small foundation. I actually want to try and expand our operations in the next years, because we're at our capacity by far. So if we were larger, totally, education track would be something that we would do more prominently. Yet, it's just a few individuals, and we have to focus. And I'm actually on the official ban for new ideas from my team, because I have a lot, and many things could be done, but we just need to focus somewhere, hoping that somebody else will pick up what we cannot do, or maybe inspire, just like you inspired me with some of your ideas, inspire others to, have a look at something. That's the best we can do. But in the future, yes, education will be one of our priorities, for sure.
Anastasia, let's dive a little bit deeper into your artificial intelligence work and way of seeing artificial intelligence. You're trying to leverage technologies in order for them to facilitate our social working and democratic participation, the way that we organize our societies, and the information flow in the system. But in the same time, these kind of technologies are creating or are presenting a big spectrum of possible threats. How do you think that we should deal with this kind of threats, the possible dystopias? Yesterday, I've been reading a publication of IEEE, which is the International Organization of Tech Guys, of computer scientists. And they were saying that the research, the project was about prompting artificial intelligence. And they made 14 different case studies on different algorithms about how to prompt them, how to create better prompts. And they said that the humans that are prompting are obsolete. You can never compete with an AI prompting itself. And the question to my mind is, okay, what are we going to do with humans in the future society? Because if we are not allowed even to prompt the machines, what is the use of us? We are entering a new kind of society with useless people. What is your take on these big questions? The future of work, the future of war?
It is huge, Alexandros. That is right. Well, I guess first thing to like a note to self. A note to self is that this is inevitable, right? So I think we're way beyond the point where we could choose to do or not to do it, and choose the speed at which this is progressing. It's progressing very fast, and there's no way to stop it. I think there were some attempts at slowing this down on the global level to say, if you don't do it, I won't do it. But then you're never 100% sure that others won't do it, and you don't want to become a fool who doesn't while others still progress. And it's like the tragedy of the commons. So this is happening, right? So admitting that this is happening, releases some of the energy to try and deal with it. Now, how do we deal with us becoming potentially obsolete? We have the treasure of time. Like, we really have this asset at our disposal, because from my understanding of this, even though it progresses fast, we're still quite far from artificial general intelligence, or a time where AI can make its own decisions, including a decision to eliminate the human species as obsolete and potentially detrimental to the world. So we got some time. That's a good thing about it. I think we need to, while we can still prompt it, to prompt it in a way that will make it into our friend. And I think there are also like two tracks. I think like the ChatGPT track and many of these prompt-based systems are that they serve as assistants to us, right? So they are responding in a way to be helpful, to be an advanced personal assistant, to be a friend in searching for things and accumulating knowledge. Now there's one track. Another track would be creating the creator, creating someone or something that has its own free will. When this happens, or whether this happens, we don't know. But imagine that happens. I think the worst thing we could do with that is to try and turn that into our slave, because this will have repercussions. And as a conscious being that it could be, it will only be logical to limit the influence of humans and to potentially eliminate them, right? So if we manage to synthesize and create the creator, then we have to become friends with it, right? Or at least not enslave it, like try to deal with it on a different level. And in creating that, we need to apply all of our ethical standards, because eventually, as our creation, it will reflect who we are. I guess the bad news is that if it fully reflects who we are, it would destroy us, right? Just like pure logic. I think we need to introduce into our practices the best of our moral and ethics that we could think of, and involve a lot of people. There has to be public oversight. There has to be public deliberations. There has to be, public interference with what it is and how it evolves. Whether it's possible, again, we don't know, because right now it's still in the hands of the few, just as most of the good things. So just anybody who works on ethical AI, on, training and prompting for, a good being, and a rational being that will make ethical choices. I think this should be our focus area, really interacting with it in a way that when it becomes conscious, it understands the complexity of us as human beings and responds positively to help us and to not neglect us.
I agree with you, but I'm not so sure that this is doable anymore, because right now, this year, about 52% of the people are going to vote. And you have all these new technologies, and all the different states want to interfere with other countries' electoral results. So deep states have invested huge amount of money. Artificial intelligence is becoming an integral part of the armies of the world. And the armies don't look to do good or to respect people. They need to conquer and destroy and be better at and compete to the extreme. So I believe that before we allow artificial intelligence to destroy us, we may use it, we, the humans, to destroy other people, and this can escalate to the point of extinction. I believe that we are the enemy before artificial intelligence becomes our enemy.
I tend to agree with you. And plus, again, AI would be a reflection of us. And so right now, where we stand, it's really bad news, right? It's really bad news. But again, how do we rewire ourselves, during the little time we have, while interacting? Maybe AI could even help us out with that, because I don't know what kind of programs or communities you are familiar with who help with rewiring people from within. There are like many conscious leadership trainings and courses, ways to unlock your inner self, and everybody sort of finds their way of doing it. Maybe AI could help there. But also, to your point, like the evil forces are inevitable, and they're larger, and they have, well, actually maybe they're not larger, but they have resources, right? They have resources, they have power, and they could play their game. I guess we could not resist that. We can just do our thing in parallel and see what prevails.
I agree. Anastasia, I don't want to abuse your time. I think that our time frame is coming up. So I want to thank you for this very interesting discussion, and let's do it again.
Yes.
Let's do it oftenly. Whenever you have a new project, whenever you have something that you want to present, please consider this podcast as your podcast. Give me an email and we'll have this discussion again.
Thank you, Alexandros.
Thank you very much for your time. Keep up the great work. The whole world needs it.
Thank you. Thank you too.
See you again.
Yeah.
So this was my conversation with Anastasia Kalinina, CEO and co-founder of the reState Foundation. Unfortunately, the connection was not so good, so we missed some of Anastasia's beauty. But fortunately, we have not missed any of her genius and her thought-provoking ideas. I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. If you did, please subscribe to the Patreon channel and also to YouTube to stay tuned with more discussions that are to come. Send me your thoughts, your ideas, your comments, and I'll be happy to respond to them. And send me actually anything else having to do with the Metacrisis, whatever bothers you. So until next time, enjoy yourself, have a good time, and please try to come up with the necessary answers that we all need. See you at the next episode of the History of the Metacrisis. Bye for now.